Welcome to Labor's View. This show is brought to you by the very hardworking and dedicated employees of the Essex County Division of Welfare, the non-managerial employees, who are members of CWA Local 1081. I'm David Weiner, president of the local and host of Labor's View. Tonight, we're doing part 2 of our interview with Tobias Fox and Steve, or Steven? Steve's good? Okay, because I hate Dave.
And we're in the middle of a construction.
Saporito, and we got construction outside, so if you hear that, we're here in lovely downtown Newark, and that's what the noise is. When we left off, last month we'll say, since we're doing the same day, but it's going to be shown a month later, you were going into stories about other places where you've been. In Seattle, was it Seattle?
St. Louis.
St. Louis, I knew it was an S word. Before we get there though, let's focus on what's going on in Newark in better depth. Not just well, one thing I'm curious about, and we talked about Brother Rockman, is I heard, maybe it was in the article, I guess, that Councilman, who was there? Baraka.
Spent the night.
Roz, okay. And then all of a sudden he turned negative, right?
Well,
what happened?
Well, so Raz Baraka, from what I understand, is that they, it's a group of mostly young who are starting this Newark occupation near or behind Penn Station in the Ironbound section.
Right.
And
where a lot of homeless hang out.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then some people who was affiliated with these local activist groups here in Newark came across this small young group and says, "Hey, you know, we'd like to help you guys out." And then they came up with the idea with occupying Military Park. So this was then they wanted to announce a re-kickoff of this occupation on November the 18th. And so it got word back to the city council. They thought it'd be a great idea as well to get people more involved, politically, socially involved in the things occurring on in Newark, especially with foreclosures, Prudential not paying their share of taxes, layoffs of the police department, things of that nature. So these are national and global issues.
Sure.
And so city council supported the idea. They would come down. Even Mayor Booker came down, had some dialogue on through live stream at Military Park.
What is live stream? Live
stream is allows people to see online the events in real time. What's going on? So
is it on now?
No, we're working on having it live streamed 24 hours a day. But for the most part, it's live streamed during our General Assemblies, which is usually Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. For about 2 to 3 hours. We have it live streamed.
That's the communal aspect that you were talking about earlier.
Exactly. Right. And then on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we have live stream from 3 until about 5, 6 p.m. So
how can someone access that?
They just go on to occupynewark.org, and then there's a tab that says live stream. They click on the tab, and voila, you just start watching.
Cool.
Yeah, okay. So it's just like having online television. You know?
And there are some archive things, like the Cory Booker thing is on.
Yeah, because they was looping at it one time.
Yeah.
So Cory Booker came down in the beginning, spoke, gave his perspective about the situation going on in Newark, politics and economics, things of that nature, and heard some grievances from people, and he even donated, gave like a couple of hours donation, you know. So that was a sign of good faith from his perspective. But what I try to tell people and remind people is that we are a non-political social movement. So we're non-political, meaning that don't expect us to have a political campaign going on. We are communal, meaning we invite whoever want to come and share their point of view. We want to exercise true democracy. So if you're with the 1%, if you're with have a political agenda, we would allow you to come speak, but we just try to remind people that this is not a platform for your political campaign.
Or it can be if you can get the consensus of the group to agree with you.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So yeah, so it can be, but
Generally it's not.
But generally it's not. That's not the case. So
Try and get consensus.
yeah. So then council. So members of the council were coming down as well. Ronald Rice, Ras Baraka, a couple others. Mildred Crum, and then the president of the council president. I don't know his name. Donald. Yeah.
Payne.
Donald Payne Jr.
There's
Sorry.
also
Did
a
he come?
freeholder.
Yeah.
He's a freeholder?
He's
That's
freeholder.
right. That's right. Because I was at that meeting with the
He's got 3 jobs.
with the city situation with the immigration.
the hardest
Delaney
working
Hall.
I've been
in
working with
politics.
Karina.
All right, so
on that.
good, because I was there and they just released the articles. Had my little quote in there from when I
Oh,
said.
that- I mean-
Yeah.
They just gave him the contract again.
It was terrible, unanimous vote. Let me tell you, just you know,
What's
That
this?
went
I'm
through.
going to digress just
I-
one
I was
second
Oh,
here
it
here.
had to
for
go
that.
through. There was only one bid.
Yeah, and I remind people this that they're just as we study the ancient Egyptians, ancient Romans, the Atlantic slave trade, these historical events and societies. Future societies are going to look back at us and they're going to study our legal system and the prison system and all that, and they're going to look at judges, prosecutors, and all those directly responsible with the population growth of our prisons. As criminals, we have the largest prison population rate in the world.
Yes.
Over 2 million people. It costs $50,000 a year for an inmate to stay in prison. $50,000 a year. So I was talking to this former prosecutor. I says, "What's the
Not Cliff Minor.
No. The name is not coming to me yet, but former prosecutor. Now she's into reentry programs.
Okay.
I said, well, what's the maximum sentence a person can get for carjacking someone? She said 20 years.
That's right.
So I said, well, what would that cost taxpayers in terms of dollars? She says, well, it's $50,000 a year, 20 years, that's $1 million. So I said, wouldn't it be cheaper just to give the person a car? So we.
Well, the worst part is the drug aspect, which they're trying to deal with. Because in California they're letting people go. There's no room.
I lived in LA for 8 years, and it's just the overcrowding in California is unbelievable.
Then you got that maniac out in Arizona, is it?
Joe Arpaio.
Who's in trouble with the feds
Yeah,
or something?
apparently civil rights violations.
Good. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But anyway.
Yeah. So just bringing it back to Ras Baraka is just that so Ras Baraka wanted the opportunity to come down, share some things of what I was just speaking of in terms of the not paying taxes, prison population growth, things of that nature, social issues, economic issues, and from what I understand from him, what he was stating at the just most recent council meeting we went to, is that he felt disrespected. People were saying that someone said to him that he couldn't come down, and things of that nature. So I didn't hear that language. So that's coming from his perspective. He said he experienced it, but we did apologize if that was someone said it to him. We know that Angela was taking a huge beating because she was becoming more of the voice and the face of Occupy Newark, which isn't. So she was being looked upon as our leader, so to speak.
Right.
And so we asked if she would just not speak as much, just because we don't want people to start attacking anyone, physically.
And this is the young lady who went before the city council.
The first time, yeah.
Calling herself Angela X.
Calling herself Angela X. And
but she was harassed I was at that meeting, and she was verbally assaulted at that meeting from the audience. The council could not get them to stop by the people who were complaining about Occupy Newark.
Are you talking about the heavyset woman?
I don't want to name.
Her name was in the paper. I know her.
Her name was in her. Yes. Yes.
So, you don't have to
but here's the thing. The occupation is not. The occupation is not about coming in and supplanting things. We are here because we have a common vision of what is wrong with Newark. You know, unlike New York, Newark is the city of the 99%.
Yeah,
The problem with Newark is that the table for Newark is all tipped up and the money's all sliding out of Newark and down into Wall Street.
I don't even think we have a 1%.
I don't know. I was trying to think. You know, it's like, you know, you can't even go into Forest Hills and find people who are the 1% anymore.
And that was my thing. I think what Ras Barack was trying to do and one of the things that I'm trying to do as well, is show the connection between the politics and the economic situation between Newark and New York. And I think somehow that got kind of misinterpreted. People were seeing Ras Barack as trying to use it as a soapbox, not understanding that he was just really trying to share information.
Right. And I think it's also the disconnect between a city councilman who has a presumption of not authority, but certain gravitas that he's allowed to speak, walking into an occupation situation where it is consensus built and driven, and everybody has an equal time to speak.
But he's also a school teacher. He's a principal of a high school.
Yes.
And whose father is a famous poet. So
second and last poet laureate of the state of New Jersey.
Right. So
you got old ideologies clashing with new ones.
And that has been what you see in the papers about people getting upset is exactly the clash of old ideologies and new ones coming together. It's when we were speaking earlier, one of the things that I was impressed with respect to the union movement and Trumka and all those people who have come to Occupy is that they've understood the unions are kind of part of an old paradigm. And that there has been.
Thank you.
You know,
it's true.
It is. I don't mean to. I don't mean to be
No,
insulting.
I know what you mean. No,
but
I agree. I call it Labor 101. There's very rigid.
Yeah.
But I think that labor has also seen that there is a benefit to the occupation and the Occupy movement, and that they have come in, I think, smartly to say, we will be part of your General Assembly. We don't want to take it over. We don't want to usurp it. We want to have members, you know, and there was a little bit of tension in OWS between the people down...
Occupy Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street.
I just want to make it clear.
Occupy Wall Street. Sorry to be so... between Occupy Wall Street and certain construction union people right catty corner to Zuccotti Park.
Okay.
And there were a bunch of labor guys who would go down, you know, because at first there were kind of catcalls from them, and then labor guys started showing up in the occupation and going down and catcalling back. And she's like, "Don't worry, we've got women to fight your battles for you."
It's not only but the construction trade in general,
yes,
as you know, is a much more conservative, leaning.
But let me tell you,
the public sector.
By the time we went, I think it was our second march for the CWA against Verizon and what they were doing. When we marched past that construction site, and this was Occupy Wall Street people.
Right.
When we marched past that site, the guy in the crane started blasting his horn in support of what we were, you know. So
it takes time,
and it takes time. It takes and what the occupation is all about. And Tobias and I have talked about this. Is about the conversation.
Yeah.
It's about talking to people. Is what I said earlier in the last segment.
That's where we're at now, awareness stage right now. This is just people. It just started September 17th, and people want, well, where's the results? Who's the leader? And this and that. It's like, wait a minute. It's just ridiculous. Like, okay, how long did it take civil rights movement to go?
Well, I watched Fox for like 5 minutes just to yell at it, you know, and look at the women because they all have short skirts. But
blonde hair, blue eyes.
Yeah, real blonde hair. They're all blondes. But you know, you watch that, and they keep saying over and over again, what are the issues? They have no focus, and you know, how many times do you have to state it?
There was a great article in the Guardian about 2 or 3 weeks ago, doing a review of all, not just Fox, all American media, where they're saying, you know, they keep asking the question, like, what are your issues? He said, you know, I was taught journalism. So with a little bit of journalism, I went down, I spoke to 20 people that I knew were part of the movement. And then we at The Guardian put out a thing on our page that said, if you're part of Occupy Wall Street, we'd like to know what your issues are. And with a little bit of journalism and a little bit of the internet, it was eminently clear, you know, that it was the end of corporate personhood, money out of politics, the return of the Glass-Steagall Act. He's like, you know, in a day's worth of journalism, he said, and so why is it that ABC, CBS, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times,
it's so amorphous.
Fox News going, well, they don't have a message. It isn't coherent. We don't know what they're talking about. We don't know what they want.
Yeah.
It's like
they're just following orders themselves. They're just a PR firm for the government.
And that's the problem. And this problem goes back to Bill Clinton. Because when Bill Clinton, we used to have ownership limits in media, 17%.
Oh, I know. You couldn't be in the same markets.
If you owned the newspaper, you couldn't own the TV station,
radio
station, and to keep, because the idea was in a democracy, the versatility of the voices that you hear ensures our democratic principles. And when Bill Clinton, later even further pushed out by George Bush to accommodate Rupert Murdoch's growing Fox News empire, chipped that away for the first time since 33, I think the Communications Act came out. And for the first time, Bill Clinton chipped that away from 17, it went to 33%, and from 33 in Bush went to 37%. All of a sudden, the voices that people heard in their ordinary, everyday, busy, I'm struggling to survive lives, all started echo chamber, echo chamber, echo chamber, rather than...
John Daly does that well, right? He'll put up what the difference and the different stations say about the
John
same
Stewart.
issue. John Stewart, the Daily Show. And you're right, they use the same terms.
They use the same terms.
It's not just Fox. I mean, the same exact terminology.
Over and over again. And there was no diversity of opinion. There was no diversity. I mean, I think it's why we...
That's why more people are now going towards leaning more towards independent media,
right?
Because they get more of a diverse view of things and people who actually are on the ground. You know, you get interviews from people who actually are in the midst of these things, these situations. You get a better perspective. You know.
Well, the most egregious thing in Jersey is when, in my mind, is when they destroyed, because of Christie, they destroyed New Jersey News.
Oh yeah,
And they turned it into the Steve Adubato Jr. show.
Oh yeah.
And so you have people doing Skypes at first. Nobody was really there.
Yeah.
The State House isn't covered well. They brought in some guy with a suit that has a good reputation.
Right.
But it just sucks. It's
no,
horrible.
I know.
So now you know nothing about New Jersey.
I know that, and with the media consolidation into the corporate structure, people's ability to get accurate information it has been decreased more and more and more and more, and that's what the 1% wants.
Yeah.
Because it's all becoming part of their
They're going to
control.
give birth to a whole new culture, which is independent media. People are going to go independently, just going to other sources. Because they just did a study on Fox. Is if you watch Fox News, you walk away knowing less about news than someone who doesn't watch news at all.
That's right.
And if you want to see things about the Occupy movement, I would suggest the other 99.tv. Tim Pool, a young kid, I think he's out of Chicago, came to the occupation, started live streaming. He's part of Time Magazine's Person of the Year package. They did a really, really nice piece on him online. It's the other 99. The other 99.tv. The Global Revolution shows his stuff, but he live streams, which means he will show you things as they happen.
It's raw.
It's raw. He will comment. He was out in Long Beach for the strike, and was right there on the line and was like, "Oh my God, the police have just pulled out guns." And he's like, "I've never been more scared in my life." He's like, and the cops going, "If you don't have an official press badge," which brings up the point of who is the government to say who is and who is not the press. He said, you will be arrested or chemically maced. Because they were making announcements that if you're not out of this area, everything was very cool, but it's like there you were getting it live, you were getting it like unfiltered, uncensored, and you could see it and make, decisions for yourself. And that is where I think a lot of this stuff is going to go. I mean, Tim was great. He did a great interview with the detective down in Philadelphia, because he went down to cover Occupy Philly, and he was standing out in front talking to the guy who was like classic, like pork pie hat kind of detective, who the guy was saying, I believe in this. I believe in what you're talking about. And they had a discussion. Then about 15 minutes into it, he goes, "So what do you think's going to happen with the occupation?" And he said, "Ultimately, this will fail." And he's like, "Well, if you believe in it, why do you think it'll fail?" He said, "I'm a cop. I deal with facts. I deal with historical precedent." He said, "In 5,000 years of human history, every leaderless movement has always failed."
Well, he could be wrong.
He could be wrong. But what he also said is, like, if somebody stands up to take that leadership role, he said, because there are leaders in OWS, and there are.
Well, I think what people see, my thing is this: like, why are they saying we're leaderless? It's not saying that there's no leadership.
Exactly.
They're saying that there is leadership. They're saying leaderless is because throughout history, it shows where leaders have been going to become dictators. If they haven't become dictators, they become assassinated. And then what happens to the movement once the leader becomes assassinated is that the movement itself becomes disarray. It becomes, divided and conquered, So
Martin.
Yeah. Mark, come on. So it's not that it doesn't have any leadership, because I'm an organizer for Occupy Newark. Steve is an organizer for Occupy Newark. So that's leadership. But do we say, well, this is how it's going to happen, this is the direction we go in? No, we have a consensus on that.
When you have these meetings, I assume it's across the street, right?
Yes.
Because I think I read that in New York, they're planning meetings are in a hotel.
No.
Well, I think there was an article about some people in the within a particular working group who were staying at a hotel.
Staying at the W.
Yeah, and it was the hotel was like up to $700, stuff like that.
Right.
But that was exaggerated.
But that's not that's not where the that's not where the General Assembly has been held. I think that was a certain group of people who were.
There were. I'll say this. There were a group of people who are the main core organizers of OWS, who stayed in a hotel, who maintained a hotel room for them to get some sleep that was very close to Zuccotti Park, which is a pretty high rent district. I
wasn't being critical.
No. But this is an issue that has been out there, and the truth of the matter is that one of the tactics that the police are using is jackhammering at 3 o'clock in the morning, and if you stayed in the park, that's why they're doing it. They knew that we were here. But one of the tactics that the police use is to constantly keep you awake, on edge, not let you get a good night's sleep. Exactly. Like not quite as bad, because if they started blasting rock music, they would have just had a party all night long with the drum circle.
You blast disco, I'm gone.
And
a rap, I'm out of it. And James Brown, yes, but anything else, I'm gone.
And as a movement in that moment, it was important and prudent to have the people who are the sort of nuts and bolts organizers of the thing, to have a place close by where they can get some sleep. And then that was, of course, blown out of proportion by,
Let's talk about across the street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Newark.
So
what's going on?
All right. So the thing with Newark is that one was small but growing occupation, and
what, about 12 tents out there?
Yeah, it's about I think it's about 12 tents. So the occupation is more symbolic than anything. It actually gives a visualized statement saying, hey, we're here, we're acknowledging these problems. And one important thing is that we want to build a community within the community. We want to have a meeting, open public space where people can come, share ideas, discuss problems, but not just turn problems into complaints, but turn our problems into some sound solutions. So right now we're in the awareness process. We're in the awareness stage where we do a lot of outreach, let people know, hey, we're here.
You're learning what the issues are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we can't just create solutions without knowing the what the problems are, and not just the surface problems. I'm talking about the core root of problems. You know, like foreclosures, unemployment rate. Those are surface problems. Yeah. Okay. Well, we can replace unemployment with jobs, but would that actually change a corrupt system? Would that actually, you know, how?
Well, he talked about getting money
Yeah,
out of politics. I mean,
Well, how long? Yeah. Well, how long would that situation last before it repeats itself?
We tried it in Jersey. You know, remember that? We tried. There was a couple of cities, because I'm also on the board of New Jersey Citizen Action, and we tried it in a couple of cities where they had limits. You had a real, you know, the same amount of money and all. And it went well, but the politicians don't want that.
Right.
That's,
Exactly.
They don't want
Exactly. So is that a solution or a temporary fix? To me, that sounds more like reform than a solution, because how long would that fix last? You know,
that. How long would any fix last?
Well, that's the question. That's the question. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But that's some of the things that we want to discuss, talk about, and create solutions. I don't believe in education reform, because I think there's so many things, deep-rooted issues,
systemic that are precipitating.
That we need to create, and that's what I'm working on, is creating a new public school system, and not just local public, but global, because our issues are global. We're globally connected.
Not charter schools.
This is not a charter school.
No vouchers.
This is not a contract with the U.S. Department of Education. This is not a charter school. No vouchers. None of that. This is because I honestly believe that is one of the campaigns that I joined and related to Occupy Wall Street is the student debt refusal campaign, which they're saying like, okay, the more you support a system, we contribute to it sustaining itself. We add to the problem.
Right.
So this student debt refusal campaign is that, okay, well, once you reach 1 million pledges, that everyone agreed to not pay their student loans back, acknowledging those consequences, because if we continuously pay those loans back, we're almost at $1 trillion in student debt,
right,
which will over-exceed credit card debt if it hasn't done so already.
That's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
We got 1 minute left.
Go ahead.
You guys I believe the council has voted to close this down in January. Is that correct?
Well, they want to revisit. They want to revisit the discussion, and it's really a little unfair because they're expecting us to demonstrate some significant changes within a month's time. But I think they are.
It's a council that doesn't even get their budget done.
So it's unrealistic, but we're taking it and with the stride, and I think they're using it also as a means to cover themselves, where they can just revisit it on a monthly basis to see how things are, to see if they want to.
So there's hope that you'll still
it's
do
a little.
that.
It's a little. I'm not going to say unfair because I appreciate them, you know, and I'm part of this because I want to present a counter narrative to how the occupation can work with governments and communities to try and address problems, as opposed to having a military force attack them, as we've seen across the country. And I think the city of Newark, I'm grateful for the recognition of that. But when they turn to us and expect us to be so much more, I don't know what the term is, so much better than, like, they're complaining about things that could potentially go on in Military Park, that if you go up Raymond Boulevard a little more, are going on every single day.
Well, we can't go on anymore because the show is over.
Okay.
But I want to thank both of you for being here again.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
we whatever our local can do.
Change my shirt.
If you need if you need food, tell me what you guys need. Our local will be happy to help out.
Good.
Appreciate it.
I was waiting for Shockley to get Angela.
Well, that's the next show. You got to get those two, because that would be awesome.
That would be great.
Yeah.
We're the polite guys.
Yeah. I've had Shockley on twice.
He's a good guy.
Thank you for joining us on Labor's View. I think it was a very fascinating discussion, and I hope you did too. And we hope to see you on future shows. I'm David Weiner. Thanks for watching.